and we'll go through our session today. Okay, thank you everyone for your time joining the Rapido monthly update. Today's update is the January 2024 update. My name is Megan Weldon and I'm Rapido Product Manager. Happy to be here with you. Okay, our agenda today is as follows. First, we'll touch on items for the Rapido community. Then we'll be covering the Rapido monthly release. This time it is the February 2024 release. I'll address a few frequently asked questions, and then we will have time for your questions at the end of our session today. Our first topic are items of the Rapido community. Okay, so when we ended 2023, we had 113 libraries officially live using Rapido, and we're already at 115 live libraries, and I'd like to welcome Mount St. Mary's University, as well as Fitchburg State University, both libraries joining the US East Pod and other pods and working in Rapido now. Another item for our community is an upcoming webinar in February. You'll see a webinar available about Rapido by Florida Gulf Coast University, a library using Rapido. This would be an interesting webinar to attend if you want to hear about the Rapido experience from another library's perspective, or if you have colleagues who are interested in hearing about the experience of using Rapido. This would be a good webinar to share with them, and I can share the registration link with you at the end of our session today. Okay, another topic that I think is really relevant to our community today is that the Rapido 2024 roadmap has been published. Here's just a screenshot of our landing page of that website, and you can see things are organized under the themes of analytics, connect, your library end user experience, and then your experience as staff using Rapido. There's a lot of exciting developments there. If we haven't talked about it in a recent meeting and a recent one-on-one, then I encourage you to check out the website to see all of the fun things and great developments that we have planned for 2024. Okay, now to the release highlights. These are the highlights from the February 2024 release. There's a lot of content here to get through. Okay, thinking about Connect as one of our themes, there's a lot of developments related to Connect. Okay, one of those things, and one of the things that you'll see on the Rapido roadmap is Rapido becoming available for any integrated library system. That will expand your connections within the community and open up Rapido availability to other libraries. It's something that we'll be working on throughout the year to bring Rapido to any integrated library system. Another thing that we have as a work in progress is ebook resource sharing functionality. We have developments underway for this, and we will announce the full release of the functionality once the workflows are completed, but did want to give you an update that this work is underway, and you can expect this functionality coming to your Rapido environment. We have it planned on the second half of this year on that roadmap. Okay, there are a lot of developments related to Optimize that we have to deliver for you in the February release, so let's discuss a few of those. One of those being the ability to configure conditional shipping terms for digital sharing. So as a lender, you'll be able to define some various conditions that you would want to potentially be able to apply to your requests. This development really helps with libraries who have certain conditions that need to be met in order to be in copyright compliance. So, for example, there are lenders perhaps that have to have the content physically printed to be delivered to the end user in order to comply with copyright, and they can enable these conditions that then will apply to those requests. So there you can configure those various conditions. And then once you do, this is what it will look like on your shipping workflow as the lender. So you'll see there's that new line, the shipping terms of use. At default, it sits at none. And if you need to apply one of the terms that you've configured, you would select it at that time that you go to ship your article, book, chapter, etc. Then this has an impact for the borrowing library. These requests will have the alert of the request has a loan condition. Within configuration, you'll see that known as the loan condition alert. And you can see alerts via configuration, resource sharing configuration, and then under borrowing alerts. And you can utilize this alert in a set facet should you want to be able to find these requests. It would be a good thing to consider because requests shipped with these shipping term conditions will not automatically deliver to your end users if you're configured to allow articles to automatically deliver to your end users. Instead, these requests will remain at the ship digitally status with this alert on them so that the borrowing staff at the library can review the condition in which the lender applied and make determinations about if they can meet that condition before they then supply the content to their end user. So this is a functionality with both lending and borrowing implications, lenders defining those conditions, and then borrowers engaging with what that means for their end users. And a set is a really helpful way to do that. Okay. Another development with the February release came from Idea Exchange, and this is the handling of temporary locations. So going forward, items shipped to lend that started at that are at a temporary location at that time will return to that temporary location. This really allows libraries to loan from their items that are residing at a temporary location and have that be updated correctly when those items return. Another little release highlight from February is the library card view. Now, the address now wraps. So it's a smaller thing, but it's a nice visual alignment for your end user. Instead of a long line of text, if, as needed, the address will wrap for a better view um, in their library card details. Another release item is related to a workflow action, and that is a new functionality related to dismissing notes. Previously, to dismiss notes, you would have to go into edit. You'll still be able to do it that way, but you'll now be able to see a dismiss toggle on that right-hand pane within your request. And in our view here, we see that active notes are toggled on. You can toggle them off after you've reviewed notes and taken appropriate actions related to those notes. And then in the upper right of your screen, you'll get that confirmation that note has been activated or note has been deactivated, depending upon the action that you took there. Just another efficiency in your workflow. Right, and our next releases relate to further personalizations of your Rapido experience. Okay, a new functionality with the February release is the ability to define default owning library for digital items. So previously, when you created borrowing digital requests, there was no owning library or pickup location fields. Rapido picked one based on the resource sharing member that the user was associated with. And this meant that the volume of your requests may have been distributed to um, borrowing staff to handle, and that owning library of those requests might be different to your preference at your library. So you can make this configuration under resource sharing general other settings. There's a new parameter, Rapido default digital request owner. It's going to be empty by default, but you can populate this value and it's then added to the requested pickup location. Where this functionality really helps and comes into play is in collaboration with this next development, and that's here under that convert request type action. So the convert request type action is an action that has been around for some time now in your Rapido experience. It's there to allow you to toggle a request type from a book to a book chapter or to an article or the other way around as well. And when you are converting the request type, perhaps the new requested format, the owner of that request is no longer the appropriate owner at your within your organization. So example being it was an article, so there were certain staff that should handle it, and now it was converted to a book, and now it needs to have a different owner to be handled. Now within the convert request type action, the owner field becomes editable for you to make a new selection there, and the pickup location then changes corresponding to that owner based on that configuration on our last slide. This allows you really to just define the new owner to get the request to the right colleagues for processing. Okay, another development from the February release is most relevant. This one here, pickup location available in your partners of last resort. So for libraries who are using Rapido but are also using Topaso or WorldShare to process requests, many of those libraries have connections between Rapido and their WorldShare or Topaso environment and will move requests to those environments if they are not filled via the Rapido workflows or Rapido connections. Now, as you move those requests over, the pickup location will be visible within those requests. This will occur even if you don't have the partner record configured to send requester information. So if you don't want your requester information going into WorldShare Tapasa, you don't have to make that selection in order for this information to transfer. And here's just a sample screenshot of where that pickup location moves to into this library's WorldShare or Tapasa environment. Okay, our next release really builds on and relates to the allow self-registration functionality. So back in July, we started developments or released some of the initial developments related to this functionality, where your library can choose if you want to enable self-registration. Again, you have to make the selection to allow self-registration. You can then can further configure that self-registration process via configuration, resource sharing, configuration, borrower self-registration. At this point, you are defining the user group for the self-registered users. So perhaps you want this user group to have different privileges or a user experience at your library than your undergraduates. So you made a new user group of employee, and that will then determine their end user experience at your library based on that new user group. You can, from this configuration place, also customize that self-registration form. So the form that those end users will register themselves at. And we'll get into some of that in a moment. But another aspect of this is you can now select within this configuration for that self-registered user to automatically create a corresponding partner. So the user is registering as a user within that defined user group, but a partner profile is automatically created on their behalf as well. Let's look at what that partner profile looks like here. So here we have an example where that where to show that the names of the individuals become the partner name. For organizations, the primary contact address will be the email address. Username will become the partner code. We've got these selections that are automatic of that self-registered user automatically selected, and the new request alert automatically selected for these partners too. So if you are processing requests for these users and you decide you no longer want requests on the alerts on the requests from these partners, you can go into the partner record and deselect that alert. But by default, it will be selected. So that checkbox of create corresponding partner means that when that user registers, it creates that corresponding partner so that you are then handling the requests as a lender to these partners, and they become a part of your lending workflow. So related to all of this functionality, there are new fields and aspects to the self-registration form, further customizations that you can make. One of those items being the ability to add maximum request cost to that registration form so that individual or organization or whomever you're partnering with can define the maximum request cost. So as you work with them as lending to them in the future, you have that information available to you in your work with them. Related to that, they'll now be able to define their billing information and decide and determine if that billing information is, the billing address information is the same as the contact information that they supplied, or if it's different, and give that information to you for it to be in your partner record. Similarly, for that self-registration form, you can now add a note to that form. Whether it is the individual form or the organization form, you can make different notes depending on what you might want to be communicating to individuals that are using your self-registration functionality. Okay, another development coming to you in the February release, I told you there were a lot to get through this month, is being able to configure the level of service on your request form. So you can add the level of service to the request form. You can enable many levels. Here we have an example of 7 of them turned on, and you can define the text that displays to your end users there. Once you have enabled a level of service for your end users to select on the request form, this is what it might look like on the request form here, depending on which levels your library adds. So here they've added express, normal, another variety of normal, priority, etc. So those are the options that they configured and that their end users then see on this form. This may not be a configuration that makes sense to every library, but if you have existing relationships where defining level of service is a valuable thing for you, this configuration is now available. Okay, and that information of defining that level of service is also then visible in the request view. You can see it here on the right-hand screenshot under the request information. That level of service is visible there, and the levels of service are also visible within the facets. Should library need to make a set based on the various levels of service for organizing their workflows around working on different levels of service. Okay, so that gets us through all of our major highlights for our February release developments. I want to acknowledge a couple frequently asked questions, and then I will move over to the chat to see what questions you have for us today. Okay, a question that I've heard is how do I print my pull slips in call number order? I am a library that has a big stack of items to pull every day from my shelves to get out to my lending partners, and I don't want to spend my time sorting the pull slips for the efficiency of going out to pull them. How can Rapido help me with this? Within your lending requests view, you can sort by shelving location, and then it will reorganize the items in the list accordingly. You can then make the selection of selecting all or the ones that you do want to print, and then select a print slip so that they'll come out in the order that you determined by that sort by that shelving location. Okay, how do I lend more of my collection? Or similarly, how do I see what I have defined as lendable? This, for physical items, this is all done via your participating items. So you view that via configuration, resource sharing configuration, member, and then you'll edit the member to view this tab. You'll select the physical item lending policies tab. Here you can see what you've defined. This example has 3 different sets of participating items defined. Perhaps I then attach different sets of participating items to a specific pod. So my lending with USA example here might be the terms that I attach to the US pod. This is where you can view what you've defined as lendable. And if you need to make a change, you could even add a new participating items, create that collection there essentially, make that decision about you're now lending XYZ locations, and then you will attach that to the pod that you want that to be relevant to. Okay, another question, and the last one for today before I get into your questions is how do I see the partner email address from the request itself? So on the left-hand side of the screen here, I have an example of our request view. Under that request information section, we can see the lending library, and then there is that ID card symbol. When I select that blue symbol, I get a pop-up that looks like the one on the right here, and it has the information about my library partner for me to then use and see that email address connected with them. So I'm going to move away from sharing my screen to make it easier to see your questions today. Okay, a question that I see in the chat. Is there a way to automatically bypass libraries which have conditions? Um, no, we at this time there's not a means that I can think of for bypassing library with conditions. Um, as a borrower, you can, once the request comes in and you see the request with the alert on it, or via the set that you've created, or just via looking at alerts, you'll see the conditions that the library has associated with that request. If you can meet those conditions, you can then use that content and upload the file to your end user. If not, you can find a new supplier for your request. I have a question about what does an alert mean, like an alert in the request record. Yeah, there are various alerts, borrowing alerts and lending alerts. And under the configurations, you can enable alerts or disable alerts. Many of them are disabled out of the box, but some of them are enabled out of the box. And then you will see those on your requests, and you can create or include them in your set parameters as they are facets available to you. I hope that answers your question. Please let me know if there's more about this topic that you want to hear about. I see a question about creating invoices, and yes, generating invoices is functionality on the Rapido roadmap. Okay. All right, I'm just reading to see if there's other questions in here. Um, Regarding the release that passes the pickup location to Worldshire or to PASA, will this be available to Iliad? My understanding is the work that we collaborated on with OCLC was specific to Worldshare or to PASA. I would have to follow up with you at your library after I check with my colleagues to see if there's any information on that specific passing of that information to Iliad. Okay, and I got a reminder to share the webinar link. I appreciate that reminder. So let me grab that for you here momentarily. Okay, and this link I'm putting into the chat for everyone here is the Florida Gulf Coast webinar. Okay, and then there are more questions. Let me work through those. Yeah, and Peggy, see a chat from Peggy. That's us. Yeah, thank you, Peggy. I'm excited for Peggy's webinar next month and to hear about Peggy's experience at Florida Gulf Coast University. Uh, okay, I see a question. Does the sort option by location and call number? My understanding is it's sort by location. I'd have to do some testing to see if there's other aspects within that. But my understanding is it is by location. Another question about billing/invoice functionality coming to Rapido. Yes, generating invoices is functionality on the Rapido 2024 roadmap. Okay. It looks to me like I have addressed the questions in the chat. I'm going to include my email so that if there are things that were not addressed today, we can connect with one another and make sure that we address your questions. Okay. Mark, is that link not working for you? My understanding is that I was able to access the webinar registration from it, but if you're having issues, let me grab it one more time and see if resharing it gives you a link that works well for you. Okay, so I see a confirmation that the link went through eventually, but it was slow. It does look like it did take a little bit for my my browser to load it as well. So it does seem like it works for folks if they grab the whole URL and put it in there. I also imagine, okay, wonderful. The whole URL is needed and folks are able to access that. Okay, and while I'm at it, let me grab you the Rapido roadmap link so that you have that. If we haven't discussed it yet, then you have that available to you to look through. And we're at our time for today, so I appreciate your time. Thank you.